Baseball's back. Players, they can't find a player on the Mets. What's going on? Schultze, you there? Can you explain this for me? Schultze, hello? There you are, man.
Thanks, Trev. Cameron Schultze here. The story I covered this week was Yoenis Céspedes gone missing. So the Mets and the Braves played this past Sunday, and Yoenis Céspedes, the story was that a bunch of Mets beat reporters and MLB reporters were saying that Yoenis Céspedes didn't show up to the ballpark in Atlanta, and that he was missing and nobody in the Mets could get into contact with him. So Twitter immediately jumps on the worst case scenario and saying, oh, he's dead. He must just have got up and he's missing. Somebody could have kidnapped him. He might be just dead in his hotel room. People were literally expecting the worst. And I guess that's like the funny thing about Twitter, is that we just jump to these conclusions right away. But it was pretty... at the start of it, everybody was not goofing on the situation because they were like, oh, his health and well-being is at risk and who knows. But then like Ken Rosenthal tweeted around 2:00 that the Mets know that he is okay and his safety is fine. But the funny thing is, if he's missing and they can't get in contact with him, how did the Mets know that he's safe and his well-being is okay? And then it comes out at 4:00 that the story is, or 5:00 rather, that day that he opted out. Ken Rosenthal tweeted that he indeed opted out. Jeff Passons then said, yes, that is correct, he did opt out. And apparently the Mets went into his hotel room with security around 3:00 that day, or earlier in that day, and said they couldn't find anything in his hotel, and he just got up and left, it looks like. And he informed the Mets, I guess, later that afternoon that he was just opting out. And I guess it's good that he's okay and safe in his well-being, because that's obviously the most important thing, to make sure he's good and everything. And now that everyone can get back and goof on the Mets, and in the story I blogged about, I was really thinking the worst on the story. Maybe he was just sick of being a Met. And then I went on and said, if I didn't show up to my job, I would be fired. If Cespedes doesn't show up for his job, he gets to keep his millions. And then, Mets fans, it's a tough life being a Mets fan. They're wishing him the worst, throwing him this, that, and the other thing, saying they hope he gets attacked by another hog. This was just a weird story, and if 2020 couldn't get any weirder, I guess Yoenis Céspedes was missing for 10 hours maybe, if that's the case. So I guess it was just a funny story all in all. Now that we can look back on it, and now that he's safe, you can continue to goof on the Mets. And as details of the story roll out, it probably will get a little bit crazier. But I think one more interesting thing before I send it back to Trev in the studio is that the Mets, prior to releasing the statement that he was missing, they traded for Billy Hamilton, an outfielder. So they must have knew something. But the crux of the story is the Mets have the worst PR team in baseball. I hope they realize they could have kept this story in-house and then said details of it later, just come out with that whatever story. But of course the Mets say, nope, Cespedes is missing, it's his fault, we have nothing on the story, nope, all hands are tied, we're clean. I just find that very funny that their PR team is probably the worst in baseball, and they didn't realize that they could have said nothing and nobody would have ever known Cespedes was missing. You could have said he was injured, you could have said this, that, and the other thing, but the Mets will always Met, and that's the best thing about the Mets, is they always make themselves look like idiots. So thank you, back to you, Trev.